everyone. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for the latest episode of Broncos Now. I'm Sydney Jones, your host, and coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from head coach Sean Payton as he addresses the media for the final time ahead of Sunday's game. Plus, Broncos lead writer Eric DeLalla joins the show for a game preview. All that and more coming up. Broncos are set to face the Green Bay Packers at Empower Field at Mile High this Sunday. With the Broncos looking to grab their first win of the season, head coach Sean Payton talked about the emphasis he put on that this week.
You know what I just told him? I'm tired of sitting at the podium talking to you guys, not playing well at home. So, yeah, it's time. I mean, we've got a good home field event. We got great tradition at home, crowd noise, all of those things that can help us, and we need to take advantage of it. Now, this crew that's officiating this weekend is of 17, they're second in fouls called, line of scrimmage. I could go on and on. So we got to be smart at the line of scrimmage and take advantage of the noise.
Plus, Sean Payton talked about how Russell Wilson responded at practice this week and how he remains so positive.
Fantastic. Early morning notes. He prepares like all of the top guys do, and if you ever did a work week in the life of a quarterback, it's pretty, not exhausting, but it's long.
Sean Payton also talked about Packers quarterback Jordan Love and the threat that he poses with his legs.
Well, he's athletic. We never talk about a quarterback's threat with their legs if they're just pocket passers. So you answered the question already. It's the third down. When you choose to play man and your eyes are on players as opposed to zone, you got to be on point with your rush plan. If you're playing zone, your eyes are through. But if you're, he's not the type of player you're going to play two-man against, where everyone's eyes are on the routes. Now, there's some quarterbacks you're comfortable with that. So your third down, that comes to mind. Rushing him properly comes to mind.
Now it's time to take a look at this week's final injury report. Tight end Greg Dulcich did not participate in practice again today, and he will be out for Sunday's game. Safety Justin Simmons, outside linebacker Baron Browning, defensive tackle DJ Jones, center Lloyd Cushenberry, and safety Kareem Jackson were all full participants. Head coach Sean Payton also talked about outside linebacker Baron Browning as he was not assigned a game status for this Sunday.
It would be a pitch count. Anyone who's coming back into really first contact, we did it kind of with Javonte. We've done it. It'd be, and I can't give you the, but, we wouldn't look for 60 or 70 snaps, but we'd put him on pitch count. Man, he's strong and physical, and then he's explosive. Like, you feel, and I know we're not going live, but you can see his explosiveness. And I would say there's some players that are heavy-handed. He's one of those guys.
We also talked to Baron Browning inside the locker room following today's practice, and he talked about if he feels ready to come back.
I felt ready for today, so I'm going to, see how tomorrow goes. But like I said, I'm just taking things one day at a time. I don't have no expectations to play Sunday. It's just I'm just trusting the process and, having a dialogue, conversations with my coaches, and just going from there. Like I said, I missed training camp, so it's hard to try to get all those reps in a short amount of time. Even, last week wasn't even a real week. We didn't really practice. We only had a walkthrough and a quick practice, so that was a full week of practice I didn't get. So it's just, like I said, taking it one day at a time.
He also detailed how difficult his rehab process was.
It was frustrating just because I just wanted to be out there with my team. So, and then kind of when it happened, it was like right before the week before OTA. So I was looking forward to getting out to OTAs and practicing because I put a lot of work in this offseason. So I was kind of upset and I was just angry. Not at anybody particular, just because, I love football. Like, I eat, sleep, and breathe football. So any chance I get to work my craft, I want to work it. So just not being able to be in my routine, it was just an adjustment period. Like, it was times where I wasn't even really sleeping just because I wanted to be able to work my craft and do what I love to do. So not being able to do that was just a kind of frustrating process, but I leaned on my faith, and that's really what kind of keep me even keel and help me get through it.
Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio is Broncos lead writer Eric DeLalla for a game preview. Eric, thanks for joining the show.
You got it, Sid.
Another week, another preview.
Another preview, another chance to get a home win.
Yep, exactly. Eric, we just heard from outside linebacker Baron Browning. He's been a full participant all week. He did not receive a game status, so it sounds like he's trending in the right direction for Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. Basically everything we've seen so far, full participant. Again, not being given a game status. It sounds like he's on track to play this week and make his return against the Green Bay Packers. The Broncos still have to officially activate him from the physically unable to perform list for him to play. But barring anything crazy, it does sound like that's what's going to happen. It seems like it's trending in that direction. And getting Barron back will be big for this team. I think that we see Jonathan Cooper as a really good run stopper. Nick Bonito has certainly flashed here in the early part of the season and taken a big step. But it's easy to forget that last year there was a stretch there where Barron, he looked really good. I don't want to say, I don't want to really mention Von Miller's name, but there are traits, right, with the explosion, the burst, the bend that you see, and you watch him out there, and you're like, it does look a little bit like number 58 did when he was here. Yeah. And so it'll be big for the Broncos to get him back. We know if he does play, it's going to be on some sort of snap count, and so you're not necessarily going to see him for 60, 70 snaps. But if you put him in key positions, maybe he can make a big play, get to Jordan Love, force a fumble. I believe he had 5 sacks last year and kind of limited action, and he's a good football player and just has kind of freaky athleticism. Sid, we know when he came out of Ohio State that there was that talk about, does he play outside, does he play inside? The Broncos themselves tried to figure that out a little bit, and I think it's because of his athleticism that, one, it was a little bit hard to figure out where does he need to play, but now that they've found that at outside backer, he's clearly found his groove, and hopefully he's able to pick up where he left off last year and give this Broncos pass rush group another element, another guy that can make some plays. And they've gotten younger there. Randy Gregory, Frank Clark, both gone. But with Bonito, Cooper, and now it seems like Baron Browning coming back, the Broncos seem to have a good core there of young guys. And, we'll have to see how it pans out, but certainly helpful to get a guy with his athleticism, his talent back on the field. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Vaughn, Eric, because Baron Browning told us in the locker room after practice that he actually trains with Vaughn's trainers in the offseason too. So it makes sense why we see similar traits between them.
Yeah. And, you watch them out at practice and they're similar builds and have that ability to dip and bend. And, Vaughn would sometimes use the power, but he's more that explosive guy and bend under tackles and explode in the backfield. And, again, I'm not saying that Baron Browning is Von Miller because Vaughn is obviously a special player. But I think you look at Baron and you say, okay, there's times where, hopefully he can bring just a little bit of that and help this Broncos pass rush.
Definitely. Well, I'm excited to see more of his sack dances if he's able to come back on Sunday.
That's another way he compares to Vaughn. They both like the sack dances. They're both very good at those.
They are. Eric, like you mentioned earlier, of course, there's been a lot of talk this week just about getting a win at home on Sunday. Of course, the Broncos haven't yet this season. And I know head coach Sean Payton, he even joked about it. Someone asked him again today. He's like, I just told the team about that because I'm quite frankly sick of talking to the press about this. I'm sick of answering this question every single week.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that when you unfortunately are losing football games, you have to answer those questions, and there's streaks that have to be broken, whether it's at home, on the road, against the Chiefs, against the Raiders. Those are the sorts of things that winning takes care of. But I do think that we've heard Sean talk a lot about good teams win at home, and it starts with being a good team, and good teams win on the road, and it's not about being a good road team. It's about being a good team on the road. And I'm sure later in the season we'll talk about how do you be a good team in December toward the end of the year. And I imagine his answer will be, well, it's about being a good team. That said, he also acknowledged that you do have to defend home field, and you do have to be able to get these wins. And you look at the stats this year, and road teams are winning at a high rate. But certainly if the Broncos want to get back to where they want to be, you've got to win home games. You've got to string them together. You've got to be able to count on those, take care of business, let the fans get loud in the final minutes and help you win a football game. All those things are important. And so, starting to build that here over the next 2 weeks, I think would really help this Broncos team. And, several guys have talked about just wanting to go out there and getting a win for fans who haven't seen one here in a while. And so, hopefully the Broncos are able to go out and do that. They're going to have to play good football, though, because this is a team that has had some success at times and got to show up. Sean Payton mentioned The refereeing crew that's going to be out there calls a lot of penalties, and so got to be clean along the line of scrimmage, got to be clean in what you're doing. Those are all be factors that have an impact on whether or not you're able to get the home win. It's more about just getting the win in general.
Right. Eric, looking at the offense to start, in what ways do you really hope to see, Russell Wilson and company bounce back on Sunday?
Yeah, I think we've heard Sean say enough this week, hey, Russell's going to be fine. He's going to bounce back. He made it clear it wasn't all on Russ, the way that the offense performed in Kansas City. And I think we've seen enough from this offense over the course of, the start to the season that we know that the ability to bounce back is there. Right. Got to find a way. Sean Payton talked about he didn't really love the plan they had going into Kansas City. I'd imagine with a few extra days to both self-scout and plan for the Packers, you'd probably feel pretty good about the plan that you have. It's about consistency, execution. But based on what I've seen from this offense here over the first, 6 weeks of the season, they've been good more often than not on the offensive side of the ball. Definitely. And so I would think that they'd bounce back and respond. We'll have to see who plays for the Packers. As we're recording this, there's one guy's doubtful. A bunch of guys, including Jair Alexander, are questionable. 9 guys
listed as questionable.
A lot of guys that may or may not be there for Green Bay. So that obviously has a big impact on the game. And hopefully if there are a couple of guys out, the Broncos can take advantage, whether that's targeting a mismatch or taking advantage of some communication breakdowns that might be there. But this is a chance for the Broncos to get things right. And, again, based on what I've seen, I would expect the offense to respond.
Yeah. We're switching over to the defense in here. How do you hope to see them, continue their success that they had versus the Chiefs and bring that into the next couple of weeks, really the rest of the season here?
Yeah. Well, here's one thing is that they've only given up 2 touchdowns over the last 2 games. Yeah. And, you look back at that Jets game and you think, okay, well, they gave up a lot of yards and especially in the second half, the run defense wasn't as good, but still only gave up 1 touchdown in that game and held them to 0-5 in the red zone. The Chiefs were 1 for 5. They've been really good down there. They've talked about simplifying things, playing faster, just kind of getting back to the basics and executing. Yeah. We'll see if they can take that and kind of extend it to the whole field. Jordan Love has certainly gone through some struggles here the last few weeks, thrown some interceptions. And so can you force him into mistakes? That'll be a key. You've got to make sure that you don't give up those long pass interference calls. Vance Joseph talked about that and kind of giving them chunk plays that let them stick around. And I think we saw that, at times, like when Washington was coming back, there were a couple times where you could put them away. Instead, they kind of hang around, and before you know it, you're in a football game. So I think it'll be important, especially if you can get an early lead offensively. Can the defense do enough early to kind of put this one away and give the Broncos a chance at least to build some distance between them and the Packers? I'm interested to see what this defense does because you saw a really good first half against the Jets. You saw a really good game in general against the Chiefs. Even though they weren't necessarily, there wasn't a situation where the Broncos were tied with the Chiefs and the Chiefs really needed a score. So, I'll be interested again with that to see how they respond next week against Kansas City if it's a different type of game. But focusing on this week, can you continue that momentum? Can you come out strong and stop the run? That's been a focus. They've gotten better at it. Can that continue? And then just can the defense spur some sort of turnaround? When you look at the Lions from last year, which Sean Payton pointed to earlier this week, their offense got a little bit better over the second half of the season, but their defense got a lot better. And they went from allowing more than 30 points a game to allowing 20 points a game. And the Broncos last week allowed 19 points. So we saw one game there where they kind of got closer to that margin. Can they continue that and help this team maybe start to find some wins and see if you can somehow turn this season around? But it's going to start with the defensive side of the ball. And so I'm really interested to see how they play on Sunday against the Packers.
Definitely. Eric, you mentioned, stopping the run. I know Aaron Jones, Packers running back, he's listed as questionable for Sunday's game, so I'm not sure if he'll go. But with him and A.J. Dillon, that's a tough duo right there. How do you think they'll be able to fare going up against them?
Yeah, Sid, I should be asking you. You're the Packers expert. You used to work up there, cover the Packers.
That's true. Not for very long, though. Only 10 months.
That's true. But, no, they're going to run the football. Yeah. I think we heard, I don't know if it was Sean Payton or Vance Joseph earlier this week, talked about the way you help a young quarterback is you run the football and you kind of take some of the weight off their shoulders. I would imagine you look at this Broncos defense from the external perspective and you say we should be able to run the football. And you saw some stuff out of Green Bay this week where they said, hey, we need to be able to take advantage and be in 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, that sort of situation. The Broncos need to stop them, on early downs, put them in 3rd and longs, and then rush well. And I thought that's one thing they did well against Kansas City was that kind of cage rush where you're rushing the passer, but you're also keeping Mahomes in the pocket so that he can't get out and run.
Right.
It's going to be the same thing with Jordan Love, making sure that it's not 3rd and 8 and he takes off and finds a seam and picks up a first down or more. But again, it all starts with stopping the run, and we see that. I think that's just going to be a theme all year long, is that the Broncos are going to have to continue to prove they can stop the run, because when you can't do that, as Sean Payton said a couple weeks ago, it's hard to win football games. And the Packers have a couple of talented running backs, so it won't be easy. The offensive line there has been playing pretty well, though they could be missing some guys too. So we'll have to see who plays, who doesn't play. But it's moving forward every week. I feel like it's going to be, can you stop the run first and then play from there?
Definitely. Eric, like you mentioned, there's a lot of injuries on the Packers side. So, given everything we've kind of talked about and depending on who may go, what do you think, or who do you think's the matchup really to watch this weekend then?
Well, I think it's on the Broncos pass rushers probably to get to Jordan Love. I think we saw them do a good job against Patrick Mahomes. He got away a couple times, but even when they didn't get to him, they pressured him, forced him into an interception, obviously. Some other throws that probably weren't what you would expect from Patrick Mahomes. You can't let Jordan Love find a rhythm the way that, say, Sam Howell did in the second half of that Washington game. Certainly not the way that Justin Fields was in the first half of that game in Chicago. So those are, Zach Wilson never really got into a groove. It was more, that was the run defense that was an issue there. But when you're dealing with young guys, I think if you can pressure them early and force them into mistakes, those things can compound. But as we saw against Washington, it's not necessarily the case, right? Like he bounced back and had a really nice second half.
For sure.
So the Broncos just have to play 4 quarters on defense. You've got to bring the pressure. Excuse me. I think we might see, Vance Joseph talked about, can you bring pressure with just a few guys instead of blitzing against a young quarterback? I thought that was really interesting, where he said, when you blitz and you bring a lot of pressure, sometimes it can actually make things easier on a young quarterback because it clears up the decision-making process. You're bringing pressure. He knows to look to his hot read, boom, go there. Or if it's not there, throw it away. Vance talked about making young quarterbacks, read layers of coverage, whether that's at the linebacking core, then in the secondary. Right. And so it'll be interesting to see how they attack, but still you'd expect guys like Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Baron Browning, if he indeed plays, to be coming off the edge, and hopefully they can provide enough pressure with 4, force Jordan Love into some mistakes, and I would think that would put you in position to get a couple turnovers and win the football game.
Yeah. Well, excited to be back at home on Sunday. Looking forward to hopefully a win at home. Eric, appreciate you joining the show today.
You got it, Sid.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. Hope to see you out in Power Field at Mile High this Sunday for the game. But if not, I'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube on Monday for a game recap. I'll see you all then.